This is One Fat Boy, and here are my NBA game predictions for April 10th. Tonight there's 15 games. I will be going over the spreads and over-unders for each of them. For Golden State at the Pelicans, I will lean towards Golden State -6. I think Golden State wants to keep their third seed, and they'll just outright win this game. Pelicans struggled last night against Memphis. They also played last night, so another reason to bet towards Golden State winning. I will be going over 220.5 as Pelicans defense wasn't that great last night. Then Golden State been relying heavily on their wings, kind of playing a little faster, so a lot more scoring on their end. So that's why I'd lean towards an over for this game. None of the over-unders were out at the time of recording for all the games, so these are all what I'd lean towards or put. So I'd lean towards over 220.5 for this game. For Sacramento at Phoenix, I'm going with Phoenix -13. Overall, Phoenix is a better team, even if they're just, I believe they're briefly playing their starters, and then it's going to be mostly the bench unit for the Suns, which even then, the Suns' bench unit is better than a lot of these bottom-tier teams with their starters, and Kings are one of those bottom-tier teams that the Suns are just better than, so I expect Phoenix to win, no problem. Should be able to cover a 13-point spread. I will be leaning towards over 227 as the Kings, they can score a lot, and then the Suns should be able to take advantage of the Kings' poor defense. So going with an over 227.5. For Detroit at the Sixers, going with Detroit plus 15.5, mostly due to the fact that the Sixers played last night. I'm sure they want to rest some of their starters. Not really have to put them in a back-to-back situation. So that's why I'd lean towards Detroit plus 15. Also, just some pride. It's your last game of the season. Try and not lose by 15 points, so that's why I'd lean towards that. I'll be going over 224.5, as I think the Sixers, doesn't really matter who plays, I think they'll be able to score on Detroit. And Detroit, final game of the season, just put out a good effort, score a few more points than usual, so over 224.5. For Milwaukee at Cleveland, I'll be going with Cleveland -6.5. So if Cleveland wins, they kind of secure that 8th place spot. So it's better to only have to win one game to get into playoffs than two. So there's a lot more on the line for Cleveland to play for than the Bucks, and I'm sure Bucks are resting some of their starters. So this is Cleveland's game to lose. So I will be betting on Cleveland to win, or you should bet on Cleveland to win, as they have a greater reason to be playing. If they lose this, it's obviously I have no faith for them in the playoffs. I'll be leaning towards an under for this game, as if Cleveland wins, it's going to be on the back of their defense, and also I'm expecting more of the bench players to be playing for the Bucks, and I'm not too confident in the deepness of the Bucks this year, so that's why I'd be leaning towards an under for this game, as I expect the bench units for the Bucks to struggle to score against Cleveland's defense, so under 219.5. For Atlanta at Houston, we're going with Atlanta -10.5. So I think Atlanta can outpace Houston in scoring, and then Houston's obviously not going to slow down Hawks' scoring or offense whatsoever. And then Trae Young has personal scoring and assist totals, because if he scores 9 more points than DeRozan tonight, he'll have the most points scored this season and most assists this season. So that's kind of an achievement. So I'm sure he'll be going for that. So I'd actually be betting for Trae Young to have a good game, and if he has a good game, I expect Atlanta to cover this 10.5. That's why mostly I'm leaning towards this Atlanta -10.5. Is I just expect Trae Young to have a huge game. I will be going over 233.5, as I expect little defense to be played this game, a lot of scoring overall, so over 233.5. For Miami at the Magic, we go with the Magic plus 12. So if Miami kind of they're locked in the first seed, and Magic playing at home, the Magic play better at home. So, and also you don't want to lose by double digits in your final game, and just have to sit on that for the rest of the off season. So expect Magic to at least keep it within 12 points. Do I expect them to win? No, but stay within 12. That seems reasonable. We'll be going over 218.5, as I expect the over-under comes out for this, going to be pretty low. But I think since Miami's defense might be a little more relaxed because of the last game of the season, locked in the first place, in Magic just want to last game, try and score as much as you can. I just lean towards an over for this game of 218.5. For the Lakers at Denver, be going with Denver minus 7.5. I have no faith in the Lakers, and they've just been playing like they're the 9 players left on their team. And so basically you're just relying basically on like Taylor Horn, Tucker, Malik Monk. It's like not the greatest cast of characters. And Denver, I think their role players are better than what the Lakers are putting forward, so that's why I lean towards Denver minus 7.5. And Denver has to stay sharp for the playoffs, so that's why I just lean towards Denver minus 7.5. We'll be leaning towards an over 2 of 225.5. As the Lakers defense, not amazing, so Denver should be able to take advantage of that. As long as you'll knock down your open shots if you're Denver, expect this to go over. And then Lakers with kind of this bench unit, they've been scoring like in the hundreds, like 105 to 115. So, I mean, Denver just has to score like 115, 120, which I can see them doing that. So, that's why I lean for an over of 225.5. For the Bulls at the Timberwolves, so really couldn't decide like which way I wanted to go, but I think Minnesota, they should come out with a win. And I'd lean towards the minus 6.5, but overall this probably isn't a game I would bet on, as because Minnesota, they're going to give up a lot of points, but they're also going to score a lot of points. And then Chicago's kind of the same way, just to a lesser extent. Like, they can play slower. Minnesota's very faster paced, but I think both teams have like reliable scoring options. So I just expect this game to be high scoring. Like, I believe when the over-under comes out for this, I would not be surprised if it's like 241. But I lean towards an over 235.5, as I just expect a lot of scoring. Like, who on the Timberwolves is going to slow down DeRozan and Levine? Who on the Bulls is going to slow down like Towns and Edwards and D'Angelo Russell? It's just going to be a lot of scoring options for both teams. But I do see Minnesota coming out with a win in this one. For Utah at Portland, so I just feel bad for Portland, as I believe in the month of April, they haven't scored over 100 points in a game. And I don't see that changing. So I'll be leaning towards Utah minus 19.5, even though Utah is struggling, but I think they're much, much better than Portland, that's for sure. I'll be leaning towards an under for this game, as Portland, as once again, they're not scoring 100 points a game, so that means in order to cover like 225, Jazz need to score like at least 125, and if not more, like in 130s. Like, could I see the Jazz doing that? Yeah, but do they need to? Like, if they're up by 20, why would they be playing their starters? It's going to be a lot on the bench unit for the Jazz, which I don't see them scoring that much. So that's why I'll be leaning towards an under in this game, which I think the spread will probably be somewhere between like 220 and 225, but 225 seems like the most safe bet. For Toronto at the Knicks, we have Toronto minus 5. Both teams really don't have too much reason to be playing, as no matter if they win or lose, they kind of stay in the same spot. So I'll be leaning towards Toronto minus 5 just because they have better players overall. Knicks have just kind of been random all year, so not expecting a whole lot from them. But overall, probably not betting on this game, especially spread-wise. I think scoring-wise, like, defenses might be a little bit more lax because it's the final game of the season. No reason to try and get each other injured. So I would be leaning towards an over 219.5 for this game, as I expect. Because Knicks games, when the over-under comes out, spreads are usually a little lower for Knicks games. So that's why I lean towards a 219.5 over. And it's probably go like a little higher, like all the way up to probably like 225 or 6, like above that. But over 219.5 seems reasonable. For the Pacers at the Nets, so if the Nets win this game, they have the 7th seed locked, so that means they just got to win one game to get into the playoffs. And against the Pacers, who played last night, should be an easy win for the Nets, so that's why we lean towards Brooklyn winning for sure, and then Brooklyn covering a 15.5 spread, because who on the Pacers is going to slow down Irving or Durant, which is no one. So expect Brooklyn to win no problem, and they should like focus on like getting this game done early so they can focus on that next game for the play-ins. We lean towards over 232.5 as I expect the Nets to score a lot. And the Pacers, they are a high-scoring team, and I expect them to score above 100 points, probably 105 plus or minus 5, and that should be over in the 120. So that's why I lean towards an over of 232.5 as Nets will probably just do the bulk of the scoring. For the Thunder at the Clippers, this is another one of those games where spread-wise, not gonna can lean both ways, but I think the Clippers just being better team overall, just more cohesive, better players, better talent, should be able to hand the Thunder no problem. Should be able to win by 10. As long as you can just disrupt the semblance of an OKC offense and just make them work, make them just take contested shots, they're going to have a bad time scoring. So that's why I'll be leaning towards the Clippers minus 10. Still have to get Paul George incorporated, so might play a few more minutes. He's probably playing at least 25. Shouldn't go past 35 though, but Clippers should win no problem. Covering minus 10, probably. But lean towards an under for this game, as I expect Clippers defense to really affect the Thunder offense. So under 222.5. And Clippers aren't a crazy high-scoring team, but the Thunder's defense is better of the bottom-tier teams, but still not the greatest. So that's why I just lean towards an under overall for this game of 222.5. For the Celtics at the Grizzlies, we lean towards Memphis minus 2.5. So as of recording, there wasn't even a spread out for this game, but if I had to lean towards a team, I'd lean towards Memphis just because Ja Morant's back, and they blew out the Pelicans, so obviously didn't play their starters crazy amount. And also you're playing at home, and then you're kind of locked in, and I believe both teams are kind of locked in their spots. I think Boston is kind of in that third seed. If I was in Boston's shoes, I'd rather lose this game too, so you can't move up to that second seed and possibly play Brooklyn in the first round, because I think that might play a factor in today's games, is try and avoid the second seed in the East, because you could play the Nets in the first round, which that's what no team wants. Probably would rather play the Bulls if I was the Celtics, who are currently in that third seed. So that's why I'd lean towards Memphis winning, and then I think it will be overall close game, so minus 2.5, but Memphis winning. We'll lean towards an over, as Memphis, especially with Morant back, faster pace, a lot more scoring, and I think Memphis should be able to score 115, which I expect Boston to keep it close, so that means it's got to just get that 100, 110, bring this over 225, but over 222.5 seems reasonable. That's probably where the over-under will kind of end up at. For the Spurs at Dallas, we're going with Dallas minus 9.5. Both teams are kind of fixed where they are in the playoffs. Spurs, no one can really guard Doncic right now, as he's been playing great. Mavericks as a team have also been playing great, so hard to bet against the Mavericks. And then, even though the Spurs are an underdog, they did play last night, so a little more rest on the Mavericks side of things. So that's why I just lean towards Dallas winning and covering 9.5. We'll lean towards an over for this game. The Spurs games are more high scoring. Their defense isn't the greatest, so I expect the Mavericks offense to play decent, as Doncic should be able to get all his teammates involved, score on his own. Mavericks should be able to score no problem. Spurs, on the other hand, probably score less than what they usually do. But I think Dallas will probably rest their starters a little bit, so Spurs might be able to take advantage there, score a few more points on the Dallas defense. But I expect an over for this game of 222.5. For Washington at Charlotte, going with Charlotte minus 11. So Charlotte just got to get in that playoff form, so might as well take this last game, really get it into that. Also, I believe they won their last two. Might as well make it 3 in a row. That's why I lean towards Charlotte winning and covering minus 11. Washington is kind of after kind of a weird year. I don't have too much faith in them to win this, as you really don't know what team's going to show up, but I think seeing Charlotte win this game is more than reasonable. But overall, probably won't be betting on the spread. I think 11 points for Charlotte to cover is kind of a lot, but I do see them winning, and I don't know how much pride the Wizards have, but seen a lot of points being scored this game. I think that's very possible, so I'll be leaning towards over 235.5. A lot of threes will probably be made by both teams and a lot of scoring overall. Thank you for watching. As always, bet responsibly. Enjoy watching the last day of regular season games. And good luck on your bets. And once again, thank you for watching.